I don't know. All right, we're gonna move on to college football rankings. Let me get this shared up with you boys. But hey, it's a wild day in college football. Here we go with the rankings right here. We got the Bulldogs at 1, Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3, TCU still riding at 4, LSU over USC at 5, USC at 6. These are about to get shaken up like crazy. It's going to be, I think this is the most excited I've ever been for college football playoff rankings, honestly, because, I mean, Texas can still get in to play TCU in the Big 12. Then you Kansas State to lose with the Texas win. And then you have LSU versus Georgia. That's going to shake it up a little bit if LSU can pull out a win out of their ass. And then we obviously have Ohio State, Michigan this week.
The game.
And then USC versus Notre Dame. I was like, this is a stacked schedule. Now, I'll show you guys something else. This is what the NFL rankings would look like or the college football rankings would look like if we had the 12-team format that we're moving to today. Check this out. Georgia with the bye, USC with the bye, TCU with the bye. Now, obviously, this is kind of a little bit of a wrong rankings. Michigan should be moved up to number 5. But this was a pre-looked at rankings when they made this. But Alabama, Clemson in round 1, crazy. UCF versus it'd actually be USC or LSU right there. Kind of wild. Tennessee stays in. Imagine they stay in. They don't now, obviously. Against Penn State, I am so excited for this playoff matchup series. Like when we move to the 12-team playoff, it's going to be incredible.
When are they moving to the 12?
Isn't it like 2024?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, or no, 2026. It's a ways out.
Yeah, I thought it was a ways out.
Yeah.
6? Okay, well.
Yeah, 2026. It's a ways out. But man, this right here is getting me juiced up. I mean, just imagine we get from December right before Christmas, we get all these playoff games, and then immediately after Christmas, we get another round of playoff games, and then another round going into New Year's 6. I'm very excited for this. This is going to be absolutely incredible to watch. Speaking of things incredible to watch, we'll move on to the top 5 games of the week.
Wow.
You didn't let me have my opinion on that ranking.
Oh, what do you got? What do you got?
What a stooge host here, huh, Barrett?
Yet again,
I didn't see an issue with the rankings. Honestly, I was like, man, you guys are gonna have nothing to talk about because there's nothing wrong with these.
I just want to put that 2 cents in.
There's nothing.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Well, the fact that how does LSU, like, granted LSU won, they're winning, their bigger wins are more recent, but how is LSU 5 whenever Tennessee dog stomped them at home and they're 10?
Tennessee doesn't have Hendon Hooker and they just lost.
Recency,
right.
Recency bias.
They don't have. They're gonna fall, right? They're definitely gonna fall.
Bias.
But yeah, I mean, say they did have Hendon Hooker, they still be at number 10. And LSU, I mean, they're a 2-loss team as well.
Right?
Well, I mean, they went down to Death Valley and gave them a beating.
Yeah, but you're talking 2 big wins back to back, or 3 technically, because Florida wasn't like ass at this time. Florida, Ole Miss, and Alabama, 3 back to back, just great, huge,
Ole Miss is a fraud.
huge program wins right there.
Ole Miss showed their true colors last week, that's for sure.
At the time, they were ranked 7.
Yeah, that's all that matters, though, right? Is when they're ranked.
It depends where they were.
I just want to say that
the
committee is flawed, and it is literally a failed experiment. They need to quit letting these fucking people who live in the 80s and then the fucking early 70s sit here and make these rankings, because I'm sure it's older people, just the same way that any Hall of Fame gets voted on, really. Even especially the baseball one. You know, all these old writers, like, I don't want to let that.
They don't. There's no way they watch every game. They're not watching every game.
But they should.
No, I completely agree. They definitely should. You have analysts for all the major, networks. You should make them on the panel. Put all those guys on the panel, because they pretty much. I mean, have you seen some of their setups? They're literally sitting and pretty much watching every major game, that they can. And it's not like you're going to have 3 huge games on at the same time. Every now and then it happens during the season, but I mean, for the most part, it's an all-day thing. You got games every few hours that are big. Like, they need to be watching all these games, especially at the end. Yeah, these old 80, rich whites, they're not watching freaking what they need to be watching. I mean, that was all blowing up on Twitter, yesterday and today. So, yeah, this committee crap is BS. But
And I
it
mean,
is
what's
what it
going to
is.
happen? So these two Big Ten schools that basically played a weak schedule. Let's just go ahead and put a very crappy schedule inside their conference, outside their conference. There's 2 of them, and people are going to petition hard that they should both of them should stay in whenever one loses. I mean, what do you think the playoff committee is going to do about that? What do you think? What if Michigan loses close to Ohio State?
Hey, I don't
What
know.
if Georgia gets beat by LSU? Do you kick Georgia out of the top 4?
No.
So you put LSU in there, and then you put Georgia in there. Do you knock both of the Big Teams, or do you knock one of the Big Ten teams out?
Yes, because
Yes.
if Michigan loses to Ohio State, which history will tell us in Columbus, Harbaugh's going to lose. He's just not going to win. It is what it is. He's out. He loses a game, and then he doesn't play in the Big Ten championship. He's out. LSU and Georgia's case is a little different because they're playing in the SEC championship. And if LSU knocks off Georgia, I think they move up to number 1. And Georgia will fall to 3.
You think a 2-loss team will jump an undefeated TCU?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
No, there's 100% no way. Listen, I'll say this. TCU is going to get throttled in the playoffs. It is what it is. You cannot deny it. Nobody can look me dead in the face and tell me that Georgia's not going to stomp a mud hole in TCU. You cannot sit here and tell me that they won't.
Oh, TCU's going to move up after the Ohio State game.
Yeah, TCU needs to avoid Georgia and play one of these Big Ten teams that air raid the ball, and the defenses are a little less. They're still very, very good, but they're not Georgia good, right? We thought Georgia was going to fall off after they lost like 9 defensive draftees to the draft this year on defense. They turn around immediately, number 1 defense in the country, right? TCU's not going to move the ball on that. They're just not.
Georgia's not as good as they were.
No, I think Georgia's still I think Georgia's easily the best team in the country.
Well, I do too, but they're not as good as they were. I mean, they've had a lot more close calls this year than they did last year.
Yeah, last year was their team. This year, you're right. The balance of power is shifting. It's shifting in favor of Georgia, right? We're shifting away from Bama. We're shifting to Georgia. And TCU, when they play Georgia, if they play Georgia, which if Georgia wins, which I think they will over LSU, TCU's going to get the shit beat out of them. It's not going to be close.
Yeah, the committee's going to get lucky.
I personally think USC should be in over TCU.
No.
Yeah. USC
is going to beat Notre Dame
No, but I think if you look at it right now, I think USC will put up a more competitive football game against Georgia than TCU will.
If you are undefeated
and we're looking for the 4 best teams, right?
But they're undefeated in a major conference. It doesn't matter. You're right.
Be realistic about it. They're going to get the shit stomped out of them.
But
they're not one of the best teams.
The committee,
they deserve it. They won.
I could pick LSU will beat TCU. USC will beat TCU. Alabama will beat the shit out of TCU. Clemson would probably go toe-to-toe with TCU and win. I would give Clemson a 3.5 line there, 2.5 line. Oregon would beat TCU. Tennessee with a backup quarterback would beat TCU.
Probably not there. Probably not that one.
But they're undefeated in a major conference. And
this is Notre Dame all over again.
The committee, it could be, but you just have to wait and see. I mean, you can't.
Look, they deserve to get in. TCU has done everything right? They're winning their games. They're not. They beat Texas, who fucking gets ranked again after beating Kansas. Ooh. Yeah. Way to go, committee, you fucking old whites voting in Texas. Insane. TCU's done everything right.
Listen, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why USC does not need to go to the playoff. If you let's look at what year? 2019 Oklahoma. Oklahoma versus LSU, round 1. How did that game go?
Okay,
It was a fucking stomping.
that
Wait.
LSU team was.
You're right. You're like, oh, that's special. USC is not great on defense. They have the best quarterback in the country with Caleb Williams, yes. But when they go against somebody who has a competent defense, which the Pac-12 does not have much of, just like the Big 12, then they will get shredded. Caleb Williams had to put that team on his back last week to win, and they won by 3.
Mm-hmm. No,
He made one of the. I mean, you should have seen the internet, slobbing on his knob about that throw across the body. Rightfully so. He had 503 yards of total offense. He's going to carry USC. But whenever you get in the playoffs and you play these big dogs who play great defense like the Big Ten, who play great defense like the SEC, then you're going to get throttled. It's just what it is. It's been Oklahoma's fucking worst nightmare every time we got into the playoffs, except for when we played Georgia year 1. You can't let USC in just because if you're so worried about TCU getting throttled, then you can't let USC in.
So if USC beats Notre Dame,
if they went out, they're in.
Turn around and beat Oregon, and TCU still undefeated.
They'll both get in.
They'll both get in.
If USC runs the table, TCU runs the table, then you're going to have one ACC team, one Big 12 team at the top, or Big 10 team at the top.
Listen,
TCU 3, USC 4.
The only chaos, and I'm not talking about like scenarios where Alabama and Clemson could possibly get in. The only chaos would be
Alabama can't get in. There's no possible route for them to get in.
Well.
There's not.
Listen, three of these ranked top 4 teams could theoretically lose. Twice, even. TCU could lose twice. Alabama moves up. Michigan, Ohio State's going to lose. And then there's a way. But listen,
there's a way, but a lot of shit has to happen.
I'm just saying, if the real chaos is if LSU beats Georgia and then USC wins out, that's the real chaos.
That would be some chaos.
Personally.
But what are the odds USC can beat a hot Notre Dame team and then beat Oregon in the Pac-12?
I think USC is probably going to win out. Personally,
it's a tough road.
I think so too. I
listen.
After watching what that bad man Caleb Williams is doing on the football
he's a big
field.
Oregon homer. Look at him.
I like Bo Nix. I hope they get in, but USC is just the better football team.
This is
they have the better player.
This is going to be
number
easy
one quarterback.
For the
Caleb Williams is doing exactly what the number 1 quarterback in the country is supposed to do: lead his team, carry his team. He's doing it. He did it for Oklahoma last year on a 2-loss. He did it when he came in for Rattler the year before. I was like, he's doing everything he's supposed to, or not the year before, but he's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. Barrett, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying it's going to be easy. Watch. Committee's not even going to have to try. It's going to work out perfectly for him. I just have a weird feeling about it.